Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Welcome to the Performance Matters podcast from GP Strategies, your talent transformation partner. In each episode, we'll interview industry experts and explore best practices and innovative insights to help your organization improve performance.
First question I have for you is, why simplicity in learning? So why is that so essential from your learned perspective?
Well, it's interesting. Back when I first learned to become an instructional developer, and indeed in some of the first classes that I took on instructional development, there was a principle that was taught. It was called the KISS methodology. People say it a couple of different ways: keep it simple, silly; a little more offensively, perhaps, keep it simple, stupid. Whatever. It means the same thing. But what's interesting to me is when you look at a lot of applied solutions, a lot of people seem to forget about the KISS method or the KISS methodology. And the way I usually phrase it is Mark Twain used to say about the weather, everybody always talks about it, but nobody ever does anything about it. Kind of the same thing here. Everybody talks about simplicity in learning, but when you look at applied learning, it ends up being quite complex for your casual learner.
Why is that? What is it? Because it seems like we all go into it with good intentions, but how come sometimes the end product just becomes, wow, that's actually pretty complex? What's your thoughts and take on that?
Well, there's a couple of different reasons. People, I think, confuse performance issues with training issues. In my experience, going through, like, let's say, an ERP planning meeting, that there is a virtual bucket in the middle of the room. And anything that the team, right, the PMO or a subject matter expert or somebody of that nature, if they don't want to deal with those things, they throw that in the bucket in the middle of the room so they don't have to deal with it themselves. And that bucket has a label on it called training. So a lot of times people think of any potential issue, right, is a training issue. And so it goes into, well, we need a training solution to solve this. And you just end up with a bunch of potential information that people, subject matter experts, leaders, people of that nature would like you to add into the learning. And what you usually end up with is an over-engineered learning solution, because everybody's had a say, everybody wants something included, and there is no, there's little discipline applied to what the end learner actually needs, as opposed to what everybody thinks the end learner should, the end user should need, or the learner should.
That one hits close to the bone. I've experienced that many times, but I've never heard it really encapsulated just the way that you described there.
And what we have to keep in mind too is that people are overwhelmed with information already. I mean, there's a term in information technology called big data, and big data is described in terms of velocity, variety, and volume. And the challenge with IT is, how do you take this huge, massive information, or data rather, and reduce it down into information that you can actually use? Well, the same thing happens at a personal level. You don't just get training from a single source. You get training from multiple sources from within an organization. You get bombarded with information outside of that, the news, things that are going on at home. So you just deal with a huge volume, variety, and velocity and information. And it can become quite overwhelming, particularly if you're looking at a learner who may or may not already be overwhelmed with information. And we're just adding to their burden by dumping in our own over-engineered learning solution at times.
The Performance Matters podcast is brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we can create a world where business excellence makes possibilities achievable. You can subscribe to the show anywhere you get podcasts, or listen on our website at gpstrategies.com.